Hey Simis, welcome to the So This My Wife podcast. I'm your host and producer, Lingya, and today we have a very, very special guest, Woon Tai Ho. He was the founder of Channel NewsAsia, which is a part of MediaCorp in Singapore. And if you've been around Asia, you have probably heard of this channel. But what does it take to launch a channel that renowned? And how did he end up going from there to launching his own media consultancy business and also being invited to Myanmar to launch a news channel and later an entertainment channel? We explore the intricacies of all that, as well as his relationship with success, because he was so fully absorbed in his career, and success for him when it came very easily and very, very quickly. So what was the impact on his relationships? How does he think about it now? Does he have regrets? And more than that, he is in the second part of his career, or the second. And that means that he's starting to write books, like the trilogy for George Yeo, who is the former foreign minister for Singapore. So are you ready? Let's go. Hi, Taho.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hello.
On the So This My Wife podcast. Normally, I like to start all my interviews by going to the very beginning. But then I thought to start something slightly different for you, because I look at your CV, anyone looks at your CV, you founded Channel NewsAsia. You also founded a news channel and also entertainment channel in Myanmar. You've also written many books, also on behalf of likes of George Yeo. And people will look at it and think, this is a really successful person. I wonder if you agree.
I think success is relative and subjective. And in the end, what one gets out of a project or a series of projects depends on what one needs at that point in life. Yeah? So when I started Channel NewsAsia in 1999, at that time, it felt quite incredible. I think very much of Channel NewsAsia then, because they thought, okay, you can start a channel, but let's see how you compete with the likes of BBC, CNBC and CNN. And for the first few years, our team really didn't know we were actually going to make it. It was only when we got a substantial funding from the government to the tune of several million that we realized that we actually stood a chance. And that was when we started developing our correspondence, especially in China and in Malaysia and Indonesia, Thailand. And that was when we felt we stood a chance against established players. Looking back, it was like, say Channel NewsAsia. It was after several years that we thought, oh, okay, we did something worthwhile. But at that point in time, we were just struggling. So, as with many things in life, like now, I've written several books. But when I first started, I wrote a book for Tan Sri Hian. Didn't think very much about it. Just wrote the book. It started with me doing a documentary on him. He told me, I don't watch TV. Can you just show me the script? So I said, okay, this is the script for the documentary. One night he called me up, he says, my God, I didn't know you wrote like this. You should make this into a book. And that was how I had my first book, To Paint a Smile. Yeah. Looking back, all these are quite good experiences. But I think for me, work was always all-consuming, especially television. Going abroad, studying television, writing books, they're all very time-consuming and quite individualistic. You know, you do it on your own. So I think in some ways I neglected my personal life. Looking back, if I would have also spent an equal amount of time nursing my personal life, my life would have been slightly more complete. But that's our reality.
But then some would say, if you had focused on the personal, then maybe you wouldn't have achieved as much success in your career, because the things you mentioned are incredible, but they are all consuming as well.
How much success do you need? I think if my personal life would have had inched into my professional life, it would have been okay.
I wonder that personal side, before all these things came, I found this picture of this family of yours.
Yeah.
And you have a twin brother,
Yes.
in addition to two sisters.
Yeah.
What was it like growing up back then?
I ended up being the first person from my family, my line of family, to actually go to the university. And for my family, that was a big deal. So I think, to a large extent, my sisters sacrificed a fair amount for me to be in a university. I mean, they were domestic helpers. My brother decided sometime back to not be in a university and started working very early. Also because actually of the situation at home. So I was the only one that was lucky enough to not just go to the university, had scholarships and was sent to Holland. And then also I studied in the States. I mean, in some ways, I would say my family sacrificed quite a bit for me to attain what I did. Yeah.
Why just you, though?
My brother, both my sisters did not do well in school and they decided they just work. My brother did not see the need to go to university and did not go to university. So I was the only one.
People must have commented, because in a place like Singapore, if you do so well in studies and everyone else in your family doesn't, they would make a remark.
Yeah, not so much to my face. I think people are just so consumed by the idea that my team and I could actually start Channel NewsAsia. That they, initially of course, they didn't think much about it. But when Channel NewsAsia became what it did, people could not stop talking about Channel NewsAsia.
But before Channel NewsAsia, weren't you also considering being a chef?
Yeah.
Like your dad?
Yep. But that was just, I was kidding around. I was never going to be a chef. I don't have a kitchen. My kitchen is a bar. So, no, I never thought of anything else. When I started out, I was offered a job in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
But you're glad you turned it down.
Yeah, then that was a Saturday morning. I went to Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and at that time it was at Dempsey Road. I remember walking in and Bilahari told me that they have given me the Malaysian desk. And I thought, wow, it's like studying all over again. So I actually went to the office that they gave me, and it was kind of a small room, but on the table were files, and lots of files, defying gravity. And I looked at it and I said, I don't think I want to be studying all over again. I mean, it felt like studying. And I never went back. I took the scholarship from MediaCorp and I went to Holland to study. That was the first time I stayed abroad, and it was eye-opening. It's that kind of experience that without staying abroad you would never have had.
Why was it eye-opening?
I was staying with many international students. Many of them were from Africa. And for the first time, I came into very close range with Africans. And I realized that the culture, the approach, and values were very different. Because they came from very poor countries. Every time when we were given our allowance at the end of the month, they would just paint the town red. They couldn't keep their money. Yeah. And I realized the reason for that is because they never saw so much money in their lives. For me, it was not so much money, and I needed to see myself through the months. But for them, they were so overwhelmed by the guilders that they had. One of them even turned around and said, I think I can buy a car with this. And I said, you can't, but it's okay. Yeah, I mean, this whole idea of the concept of money. And I saw a few other things in Holland, the drugs, the moral corruption. And I just thought, actually, like many people who lived abroad, I just thought Singapore is a pretty good place.
So that just solidified your determination to come back?
Yeah, I mean, being in Holland, I loved it, yeah. But I knew it was not home. Every day could be bleak because the sun never came out. When the sun does show up, people don't want to work. Yes. Because they want to celebrate the fact that they have a good day. So for me, it just dawned on me that, wow, in Singapore, every day is a good day. So you started to have a perspective. And I knew I would go home. Yeah.
Would you say that perspective helped you to identify who you were as a person and how you thought about things like money?
Yes. No, I then realized that we came from rich country, even though we are very small. The governance was good. I learned to be highly appreciative. And at that time, it was the last few years of Lee Kuan Yew being the Prime Minister. And I was lucky when I went into MediaCorp, because I was a scholar. They put me onto many trips with Lee Kuan Yew. So I managed to know him firsthand through travel. I saw how close he was with his wife. I saw how intense he was with everything he did. For instance, when we went to Pakistan, I thought he knew Pakistan well enough. But no, I mean, the way he prepared himself, I couldn't believe it. He was reading, more reading. And even when he was in Pakistan, I still remember Nawaz Sharif and Benazir Bhutto, they sought his counsel. They asked him for advice, and he gave them very good advice. But I remember, having come back from Pakistan, he would call us up and ask, what are your views of Pakistan? As a journalist, what do you think? So he was always learning. He never had this idea that knowledge was enough. And I think that is something that I took to heart and I learned too. Like for instance, when I finish a manuscript for a book, it's never really done until I send it to the printers. Yeah. So at every point in time, I will delay, can I do better? Yeah.
How were you making sure that you were learning? And were you thinking, I want to be the best there is in my cohort in this company?
I never thought about being the best in the company or in the cohort. I just wanted to be better by myself. I think all of us know if we have given our best. Someone looking in wouldn't know, but we ourselves would know if we had given our best. And most of the time, I've given my best only when I've scrapped the very bottom of the barrel. Have I done everything I can? And only you know. Even your best friend or even your family members won't know. They look at you, you're studying, you're working day and night, and say, oh, you've done your best. They don't know. Only you know.
Where's that drive coming from? I noticed in Facebook you have this tag, try harder, as if you're not trying hard enough.
When I was a kid, I didn't know I was poor. One day, I asked a few of my classmates to my home. I was so proud of my home. We were staying in Geylang. Then one of the kids said, where's your phone? I said, oh, I don't have a phone. Oh, where's the sofa? Then I said, actually, at that time I didn't know. What's a sofa? And then I think, what else did they ask? They asked a few more things that I realized that I don't have.
Yeah.
Then it dawned on me that we were quite poor,
Do you feel ashamed?
No, but there was one weekend, my sister said, oh, the master of the house is on holiday in the United States. Why don't you come and stay with me? She was the domestic help. So I still remember taking the bus all the way to Holland Village. And as I was approaching the house, I couldn't believe it, the way they stayed, you know. I mean, not just what they had, but it's a dimension of luxury that I didn't know about, So I told myself, I need to...
I want this.
I need to work very hard.
Yeah.
So you need to try harder.
Yeah.
So that's the drive.
And you thought that you could do that, achieve that level of success with MediaCorp?
No, then, Singapore in some ways spoil you. I think that level of drive, that level of want, being able to see what you don't have, I think doesn't exist anymore in Singapore. Most people have a lot. I talk to a lot of young people, and it's what else do they need? Like for instance, they will look at their sons and daughters and say, oh, just buy her another iPad, because I think she needs it. And then, oh, we are going to London this weekend, and then But when I was that age, that dimension that doesn't exist. There was no such thing as a trip. I don't think it was poverty, but it was, in some ways, I think I'm glad I went through that. So I can now look at someone and say, wow, you don't know what you have, you see. But it's a reality. We don't change our reality, but the drive is different.
What were some of the milestones in your career at MediaCorp that reached the point where the CEO went, I want to start a new channel with you?
Oh, when I started, okay, how Channel News Asia started was I came up with this program on MediaCorp called Extraordinary People. Yeah, and it was highly successful. I mean, everyone loved it. Every episode, people just said, the people that we profiled were wonderful. Then at that time, the group CEO was George Yeo. He asked me to see him and said, we have this bandwidth. Why don't you start a new channel? Don't start a kids channel because TV12 already has it. Don't start a minority channel because TV12 already has it. Sports, we already have it. Think of something else. Yeah. What about news? I looked at him and said, news? Singapore is not known for news. We have no news. No one cares about what happens in Geylang, but no one cares about what happens in Toa Payoh. I said, go think about it. So I went to think about it. We are very good with 1 hour news. Every hour we give you a news, but whole day, a whole channel. But when we thought about it, we realized that actually we were the one that should be doing news for Asia, because if the channel came from Indonesia, it would be Indonesian news because they have lots of news. If the channel came from China, it would be Chinese news. If the channel came from Malaysia, it would be Malaysian news. But because we don't have real news, it's because we are so small, we will look at Asia from an Asian perspective because we would then be the ones to collect Asian news. The more we looked into it, the more we realized that actually Singapore is in a very good position to do news. And also because we all use English. And English then become the common denominator. We don't speak Chinese, we don't speak Indonesian, we don't speak Bahasa, we don't speak Filipino. So anyone who comes to Singapore would use English as the operational language. So on many fronts, we were very well poised, very well positioned to start the channel. But of course, it went through its many heartaches. But when I led the team, and when we finally started Channel News Asia, then I think my bosses started to see that I could be the person to actually revamp some of the other channels.
Yeah.
So I started revamping. I came up with a channel called Art Central, Kids Central, a Tamil channel called Vasantham, and Surya. And then of course the region saw what I could do. So one day someone came to me and said, he's from Myanmar. Would you want to come to Myanmar and start a channel in Myanmar? I thought he was joking. But of course he was not. And then I ended up going to Myanmar and starting a information channel called MITV. And then several years later, I was asked to go back to Myanmar to start an entertainment channel, Channel K. And honestly, those were the most eye-opening, best years of my life, because nothing like stretching yourself abroad. Yeah.
You make it sound so easy to open different channels in different places.
No. I think it's very nice to say that you go abroad and start a channel, but of course you have a lot of help.
Yes. What is it that takes to start a channel that people don't see?
What people don't see would be, especially the technical aspects. What systems to use in the studio. When I went to Myanmar, I realized that they can't start a channel. They couldn't start a channel because they didn't have the software. Software meaning they didn't have the people. They have the technical stuff, that's for sure. And technical stuff you can buy. But the presenters fronting the channel, the Myanmar presenters speaking English, you can't buy. You have to teach. So we spent close to a year grooming the soft power, grooming the manpower, And in the end, we still ended up getting talent from Singapore. Getting talent from Singapore to front it first. Because the spoken English in Myanmar just wasn't there. And eventually, When we left, they moved their whole team in because they can't be paying for a foreign team to run the channel for a long time. When we turned the channel on now, we couldn't watch it because the English wasn't there, the content wasn't there. So in the end, what drives the channel is the content and the people behind it, and it is the standards you put yourself. In Singapore, we are used to such a high standard. We won't put out things that we don't think it's good. But I realized that when we left, the content wasn't there. They would put out content that we would not have put up. So what you don't see is the rigor of maintaining quality. You don't see, especially in a foreign country, where a TV station is 24/7. Television is a very, very hungry animal. The news channel is a very, very hungry animal. Every hour, every minute, every second needs content. Otherwise it's black. So the people who start a news channel don't know that. In the end, I think what I see in MITV now is 90% repeats, 10% original content. And even the original content is highly compromised.
How do you quantify quality, though?
You don't. Quality is a subjective matter. What is good for me at time from people in MITV, that's too much. We don't need that. This is good enough. But good enough is not good. So if you go to, let's say, the Scandinavian countries, where they score very high in quality of living, they will tell you what is in Singapore is not good enough for them.
They've told you that before?
No, because their quality of living is you don't spend so much time at work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Family time, I will not respond to you.
Family time is important. And at work, they give 100%, which is why I think Switzerland scores number one in everything they do. So we try very hard to be like the Swiss. But number one, they will look at our government, they say, okay, number one, even political representation we fail because they don't believe in a one party system government. They will say, equality of women, Singapore is doing very well. Corruption-free, Singapore is doing very well. So Singapore still score high, but in their minds, not high enough. So quality is relative. Quality is personal to every individual.
But you still have to communicate that to your people, though, and say, that's not up to standard. So how do you communicate that?
So when I was in Myanmar, it was very tough. It's a poor country. The fact that they got it running, the fact that they have a station up, for them is good enough. I remember when we launched the channel, when the signal was up, my staff were just jumping up and down with joy. But I was not smiling because I realized that this is where it all begins. Now they're going to look at the content and say, ooh, this is a horrible channel. There's no content. You're going to show me that? But for them, putting it on air, getting the set in place, getting their cameras in place, having a PA, having everything, it's wonderful. But for me, it's the beginning of real scrutiny. And of course today, if I look back, I can't watch the channel anymore. Because when I look back, it's what you've not kept up.
But I imagine you can look back to Channel NewsAsia. It's still maintain its quality.
No. Channel NewsAsia is quite different. Channel NewsAsia, I can watch Channel NewsAsia every day because the people there maintain the quality, in fact improve on the quality. When we started, it was a 1 hour channel and there were a lot of repeats. But today, even with the repeats, the quality is good. It can stand the repeat. No, I mean, Channel NewsAsia has done very well.
In those early days when you had no one to compare to locally, you obviously were looking at competitors, BBC, CNBC, and thinking we want to do the same. You must have taken some inspiration and thought, you did this well, we could do it. What does that game plan look like in putting together a channel?
After a while, we realized that what the BBC did and still does, what the CNN did and still does, is not so great. They criticize Singapore for having no real freedom of expression. But now I realize that their freedom of expression is also totally reflective of their very narrow and their perspective of the world. So if you looked at what's happening in Israel and what's happening with Hamas,
Yeah.
and then you look at what BBC talks about
Yes.
and what CNN talks about, my God, you can't say anything against Israel. You can't say anything against the Jews. You can't even speak on behalf of a Muslim person. So, in many ways, we very narrowly see the world from our own perspective. And I no longer apologize for Singapore. I no longer apologize for CNA or even CCTV. You know, I watch a lot of CCTV and I think they do well. When we first started out, BBC and CNN, they were gods. That was because they started a long time ago. They had a big head start.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't. So,
Did you think I want to be just like those gods first?
it was impossible for us to copy them.
Yeah.
Because of the resources they had. All news channels lose money. BBC is propelled and kept afloat by the government. CCTV is kept afloat by Chinese government. Japan TV is held afloat by the Japanese government. Every TV station, without the government's support, would die. The only TV station the only information channel in the world that is kept alive without government support is CNN. And that is because of the markets they have. They started early enough and the world still watches CNN. And because of that, they have the world as their market.
Yeah.
They don't need their own government.
But when you started CNA, you didn't quite have the support of the government. George Yeo thought knocked your head.
No, because in the beginning they didn't believe in us. When I went to George Yeo and said, we're going to start this channel, he looked at me without saying anything. He did not want to discourage me. Then when I told him that I'm not actually here to ask for money, we have the resources, he said, okay, I'm not going to discourage you, good luck. And it was only after a few years that he looked at us quite differently.
Mm.
But he still launched the channel for us. Today, of course, him and a few other ministers who were around when we started congratulate us. Yeah. But when we first started out, it was a wait and see.
Yeah. What were some of the things that happened in the early days that changed his perspective?
The day we started turning around was when we got substantial funding from the government. Channel NewsAsia was able to convince the government that it is in the interest of the government to support Channel NewsAsia, because Channel NewsAsia is very important and effective soft power for the government. I'll give you an example. When Lee Hsien Loong goes to China, CNN is not going to carry it unless there's a news angle. When Lee Hsien Loong goes to Indonesia, CNN, CNBC, BBC is not going to carry it unless there's a news point. And even when they carry it, it is probably way down in the order of things. But CNA makes it its headline. And because at some point they saw the fact that actually this is very important. Because if we support this channel, and if this channel is seen throughout Asia, we can use this channel as our platform. At one point, I think I got an award. It's a brand award. There were 2 awards given. 2 Singapore companies won the award. One is Singapore Airlines, and the other one is CNA. And then when the person went up there to talk about it, the person said, these 2 brands of Singapore we're very proud of, because everywhere we go, we can see SQ, as Singapore Airlines. Everywhere we go, we can see CNA. I thought that was a kind of compliment that we would not get in Singapore, but you get it when you are in another country. So I think we did well. Yeah.
But wouldn't that be a double-edged sword as well? The government sees the potential behind CNA, but it becomes a vehicle for the government, and you can't really provide an Asian perspective. It's more the Singaporean government's perspective.
No, the Singapore government's perspective in some way is the Asian perspective, because we don't really have a national interest as such, because we're too small. So it is in the interest of Asia that it is in the interest of Singapore that Asia does well. So in many instances, the Singapore perspective is really the Asian perspective. Not all the time.
But you can't go against the government, and you have people like Peter Lim speaking out, and then he's being told, oh, your deputy is taking over.
Okay, the good thing, or what is lucky about Channel News Asia, is that 90% of the news is about Asia.
Yeah.
10% of the news is about Singapore. The government is only interested to this 10% of the news.
Yeah.
So for this 10% of the news, if we are compliant, it's okay, because 90% of our news is Asian news. And Asian news, the government doesn't really interfere because this is Asian news. So if, let's say, we cover China in a certain way, that's because CNN covers China that way, BBC covers China. They are looking at the news. Yeah. So most of the time, if you are just reporting on the news, the government doesn't have a problem. It's only when you have an opinion about the news, that's when you have current affairs, then the government will look into it. Yeah. But even then, when you have when you have a point of view about China, when you have a point of view about Thailand, most of the time it is a fairly international point of view. Yeah. It's not a very Singaporean perspective, because the Singaporean perspective would be quite international.
But wouldn't that 10% still be one-sided?
Well, if you say that the 10% is one-sided, I would say that 90% of CNN is one-sided.
Yeah.
Because CNN looks at the world from a US perspective. Yeah. And they don't even know that they are looking at the world from a US perspective, because they think that the US perspective is the objective perspective. They think that how they look at the world should be the way that the world looks at how it looks at the world. So they don't even know that they are biased. They don't even know that they are speaking from a one perspective, which in some ways I think it's more dangerous. If you ask someone from China, they know that they are speaking from the Chinese government point of view.
Yeah.
But if you go to America, they don't know. And they think that Biden's perspective, they think that the US foreign minister's perspective is the perspective.
Hey Simis, if you haven't done so already, please do head over to give a rating and review for this podcast, because without it, Apple Podcasts, Spotify would never push it forward to let anyone else see. So just head over, share it with people, that people will know about this special series, especially the ones that we are showcasing right now on Singaporeans who have achieved incredible success. So would you say that you were thinking more in the terms of, I want to cover all the news in Asia, but I realized to operate in certain countries, I must toe the line. For instance, with China, you excellently talked about Falun Gong, and they got hold over there.
Yes, same with, if you are CNN and you are in China and you talk about Falun Gong, they'll kick you out.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're BBC and you talk about a dissident, they'll kick you out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for us, that is probably 10% of the news. We don't mind being compliant and still stay in China. And after a while, all the others also fell into line because they want to stay in China.
What was the experience of having to go and apologize, and the fact that they still let you continue to operate?
Okay, what happened was, one day I got a call from the Chinese. I got a call from my staff who was telling me that our correspondent in China had been called up because they found an accidental kind of footage, probably about 3 seconds worth of footage on Falun Gong, which we had accidentally put out. It was zero tolerance. If they told me, you get on the plane and come to China. I got on the plane the next day and I was in China. We of course say that it was not intentional, and it was true. I think we were fined very heavily. I don't remember the amount. And I don't know whether a BBC person would have done the same thing. I don't know whether the CNN person would have done the same thing. I think they would, because they want to stay in China. They want to report from China. But of course it was not a good thing to do. But it was okay. You learn.
Yeah.
It's not just China. You don't say the wrong thing about Malaysia also. You don't say the wrong things about Indonesia. They are our neighbors. And being neighborly in an Asian context, we operate differently from the West. We understand the sensitivity of a neighbor like Indonesia. We understand the sensitivity of a neighbor like Malaysia, especially when it comes to racial and religious affairs. We don't mess around. Yeah, so you learn very quickly that being an Asian broadcaster is quite different from being a Western broadcaster. And I think the Asian countries like it much better. Yeah, that we observe what is sensitive to them. But of course, when we report the Taiwan incident, we have to report the Taiwan incident because it is a political situation that's unraveling. So in that instance, we report both sides. We show China's situation, we show Taiwan's situation, and we show how America is on Taiwan's side. It's actually not that difficult when you look at it that way.
Did you prepare yourself internally for a potential backlash from China?
We won't get into a situation where we will get a backlash from China. I think that would be, in some ways, an unfortunate and not so intelligent thing to do.
I wonder, being sensitive to the different considerations in different countries in Asia, that's one way of putting it. Some other people would then say, well, that's just pushing forward the main narrative and you're suppressing minority voices. A bit like Israel-Palestine. Some people will say, look at what's happening in Gaza. You're not sharing these voices that no one is hearing, even though they've been, screaming for 70 plus years.
Oh no, I mean, with Hamas bombing Israel and the retaliation, it is important to have both sides of the issue. Yeah. I mean, it would be insane to just show one side of the issue. So I think with politics these days, most of the time it's not that easy, not that difficult to report anymore because of social media. You see, social media has equalized everything. So if on social media you get the Muslim clamoring their side of the issue, then you have the Westerners and Israel putting out their side of the issue. So very quickly an intelligent person will get both sides of the issue and then they will side one way or another.
Yeah.
Most people will understand both sides.
I wonder, going back briefly to when I mentioned Peter Lim, I heard an interview with Baoji, a very good friend. He said when he saw what happened to Peter Lim, he thought, oh, I need to think about where my career is going because it could end at any moment. I wonder if you at some point started thinking, maybe MediaCorp is not where I'll be forever, and how you thought about what your next step would be.
Peter Lim operated at a different time.
Yeah.
He operated when Lee Kuan Yew was at his fiercest and most unforgiving. And he filed a few reports about Lee Hsien Loong that was not complimentary to the Prime Minister. So, yeah, they told him, your assistant is ready to take over your job. And so Baoji also lived in the same era, and Baoji says, well, I want to retire early so that I don't want to have a situation where my boss tells me your assistant is ready to take over. I feel that it's slightly different today. I feel that, number one, there is no one person who is all-powerful in a news establishment, in a TV establishment. There are a team of people. More and more, I think the reliance is on a team of people and not one person. It's not like Lee Kuan Yew's time where they speak to all the editors. All the editors come for briefing and all that. I'm sure it still happens, but because of social media, I think the leadership is a lot more forgiving, tolerant and inclusive.
So when did you think my first act, MediaCorp, is at an end, I'm ready to move on?
Oh, okay. I told you, when I published my first book, To Paint a Smile, and it was out, and I think one day Business Time called me up and said, can we look at your book? Because we want to see what the head of a news channel writes about. So I was going to Bali for a holiday. I still remember going to the airport, the reporter kept coming to my house and I said, here's the book. And I went to the airport. I did not think very much about it. A few weeks later, someone told me that, hey, there's a review of your book in Business Times. I went to look at the review. Whew, they gave me an A. I did not know that, I know I could write, but I did not know that it would be embraced this way. So that was the first time I realized that maybe I could make it into a career. And then I wrote my first novel.
Riot Green.
Yeah, Riot Green. And someone said they want to make a movie out of it. Then I realized actually it's not such a bad thing if I can write. I left MediaCorp to write, but I was offered another job in a law firm to start the media arm of a law firm, which was a good experience. So I put writing aside and joined the law firm. It was a very good 3 years working in Shenton Way. I mean, you know, as a journalist, you never work in Shenton Way, so you come down, you see all this commercial people. It was a good 3.5 years. Then I was headhunted to go to Myanmar, and then that was several years abroad. But even in Myanmar, when I had nothing to do in the weekends, I started writing short stories, and the coup d'etat happened. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I just decided, come back lah. So when I came back that year, Lin Ziping was 100 years old. I went out with the son, and then he saw me and says, Tai Ho, would you write a book for me? I'm 100 years old this year. I wrote Lin Ziping at 100. And I think in some ways that changed my life.